As a believer, it takes faith to stand on the promises of God when you don't know how those promises are going, the intricacies are going to be worked out in all of its details. And Jesus modeled prayer in Matthew chapter 6. He was telling his disciples, he said, don't be like the Gentiles who use vain repetition and think they're going to be heard for their much speaking. He said, don't be like them. He said, because your heavenly Father already knows what you need before you ask him. You know, that's assuring to know that. We don't know how God's going to work it all out and meet those needs. And oftentimes he meets those needs in ways that we never would have imagined. But one thing we can do, we can stand on that promise. I read an article about Henry Ford, the great automobile manufacturer of the early 1900s, was so innovative, came up with the assembly line method. And he was having transmissions built at one site, and then they were crated and transported over to another site where he would insert them into the automobiles. And he gave the workers at the transmission plant specific instructions as to how they were to build the crates, the type of wood they were to use, the specific dimensions. What was puzzling to the people who were building these crates is it didn't seem to fit snugly the transmission. There seemed to be some excess there. They believed they could make that crate cheaper and it would make more sense. Nevertheless, they did what Ford instructed them to do. And when the transmissions showed up at the factory, the workers there uncrated them, but they had been given instructions not only to take the transmission and put it into the automobile, but to take the walls and the ends of the crate and use them as floorboards in the same automobile. You see, Ford knew what he would need later on down the line. In the same way, the Lord knows what we need in our journey and our path to him. He's a good God. He's an all-powerful God, but he's an all-knowing God too. And because he knows all, he knows each day that is ordained in our life and all the things that we're going to face. He has already mapped out just what we need on down the road. That gives me great confidence and assurance and builds my faith in a great God. You know, God, when you're driving, whether it's in the daytime or at nighttime you have just enough light to see ahead of you to get you on down the road. You can't see to your destination, but you've got enough to drive. In the daytime, often it's the same thing. You can't see your final destination to begin with. You only have enough light to get you on down the road. And the same thing is true with us. My friends, here's a word for you I want to close with today. Over in Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6, where the writer there says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. He will provide for your needs because he's a good God, he's an all-powerful God, and he's an all-knowing God.